Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we have the CEO of First Majestic Silver Corp, Keith Neumeyer. Keith's joining us today to share his thoughts about the Chinese balloon, where he sees inflation going, the end of the petrodollar, gold, M&A activity, silver, and he's also going to give us a much-anticipated update from First Majestic, so make sure you stick around till the end. Hey, Keith, welcome to The Dive.
Hi, Cassandra. Nice meeting you for the first time. I'm here in my hotel room in Switzerland.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us while you're out of the country. Okay, so Keith, let's start with the balloon. China sent a balloon over the U.S. last week, which they said was a rogue weather balloon. And of course, the U.S. shot it down on Saturday. What do you think that this means? Is China sending a message?
Well, interestingly enough, I read an article just the other day, and China sent a balloon over the United States during Trump's administration as well, and Trump decided not to shoot it down. Apparently, there's a similar balloon or identical balloon right now flying over South America. I don't know what country it's flying over. The article didn't get into that, but these are, I think the United States has taken an aggressive approach that really isn't necessary. China and Russia, and the United States have sophisticated enough satellites floating around the planet that they could see everything they want to see. And for a balloon to be flying over the United States, I think is a non-event. And I would kind of side with China that they're doing weather testing versus spying on the United States.
Okay, so changing gears here. The Bank of Canada and the Fed hiked rates by 25 basis points recently. The Bank of Canada hinted that they are done raising rates, while the Fed wasn't so confident. We also got hit by some pretty big job numbers on Friday. Where do you think inflation is going from here? And do you think that the Fed is done raising rates?
Possibly for the short term, but I think we're going to see quite aggressive inflation over the coming years. I think that, the second that the Fed pauses, and, that will likely happen. I think that, if the S&P crashes, 25% from here or whatever number it may be, stock market starts coming under pressure, I think the Fed will take a step back and either slow the rates or stop them and possibly even reverse the increase. And if that happens, it's going to set off a storm of inflation. I think the S&P will rock to new highs, and gold and the rest of the markets around the world will just take off from there, because that'll be the signal of future lower rates, which is really the impetus of really where we are today. Printing of money, the real estate boom, stock market boom. And I think the institutions around the world are just waiting for that pivot. And the second the world sees that, everyone's going to rush into all these markets. And that's going to create this enormous inflation that's probably going to make 7 and 8% look small, when 2024 and 2025 comes along.
China and Saudi Arabia appear to be in discussions to trade oil without using U.S. dollars, effectively ending the petrodollar. How big of a story do you think that this is?
Well, it's inevitable. The United States has weaponized the U.S. dollar. They've used the U.S. dollar against many countries around the world, and they've forced countries, small countries that really can't afford it, to go and buy U.S. dollars in order to buy commodities around the world. Can you imagine being a small country that needs oil and you have to go buy U.S. dollars? And how are you going to buy U.S. dollars? If you don't have any commodities. If you have gold, okay, fine. You can sell some gold for some U.S. dollars and go buy oil. But if you've got no resources within your country, you're forced to go and get into debt with the IMF or to the World Bank or, whatever the case may be. And it's been a very difficult situation on a global scale that's been going on for the last 70 years. So I think it's about time that we have different trading mechanisms around the planet. And what that looks like over the next 10 years, it's anyone's guess, but I think it'll be healthy long-term for the planet to be using different methods of trade.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about gold. We've seen some major price momentum over the last month. Do you think we're in the early stages of an upleg?
Friday was an interesting day, because Powell, of course, came out and said what he said, and the jobless numbers were extraordinary, 2 to 3 times what I think the market was expecting. So gold took a big hit on Friday, and nothing goes straight up. Gold at 1950, they got there pretty quickly, and I think it was due to correct. Silver has gone from 18 to 24, and then it is now correcting. I think we're going to go into a bit of a correction phase here. It could last, who knows, it may be short-lived. It could be a couple of weeks. It could be a couple of months. But I think, by summertime, by, June, July of this year, we're going to get into an environment where we're going to get north of $2,000 gold. And I think we'll see our record gold prices in 2023.
Newmont made a non-binding offer to acquire Newcrest Mining, Australia's top gold miner, which would value Newcrest at $17 billion. What are your thoughts here? Do you think that this will start to attract more capital into the precious metal space?
It's interesting because there's no one invested in mining right now. Or, when I say no one, I mean the big money, the big pension funds, the big mutual funds. Of course, we have the specialists that always have a part of their portfolio in gold or precious metals in the mining sector. But it's very, very small group of investors on a worldwide scale. When these big pension funds and mutual funds see this type of transaction, this is a big transaction. It's got to be, if it's not the biggest transaction ever in the gold sector, it's one of the biggest. And this does wake people up, and it shows these big funds, these big institutions, that there's something going on in this market that they should be looking at. And when you combine that with all the central bank buying of gold that's record levels, 2022, there was over 1,000 tons of gold bought by central banks around the world, which I think that the last record was back in the 60s, which in itself is quite unusual. So with all these things happening, if the mutual funds and big pension funds aren't watching, then they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I think it will start to bring some other money, some substantial money into the sector.
As you mentioned earlier, silver had a good run recently, but then got whacked by a result of the job data. What is your outlook for silver right now?
Well, I'm a bull on silver. I run a silver company. I put First Majestic Silver together 20 years ago. Actually, 2023 is our 20th year in business, and it has not been straight up. It's been, we've seen silver go from when I put the company together back in 2003 at $5 an ounce. We saw it go all the way up to $50 in 2011. Then it crashed over the next few years. It got down to $14. Actually, it dipped, down to $12.50 at one point. But it really got down to, as I said, about 14, and stayed between 14 and 15 for a couple of years, from 2014 to 2015, and then it took off again. And it's been a pretty volatile space. And silver is kind of looked at as the poor man's gold, but it's actually not. It's not gold. Silver is a strategic metal. It's used for everything that we do as a human race, including this call. This call would not be possible without silver. Driving your automobile, turning your refrigerator or your stove on, all these things that we take for granted simply wouldn't be possible with silver. The Silver Institute actually estimates that the human race consumed about 1.2 billion ounces of silver in 2022. We don't know that number yet exactly, because those numbers are just now being compiled and will be made public in April or May of this year. Mining companies will produce or have produced approximately 800 million ounces in 2022. So that's a deficit of 400 million ounces of silver in 2022. In 2023, the estimates are that the consumers, and this is industry, this is solar panel companies, this is electric car companies, as well as all the other users of silver, are going to consume somewhere around 1.4 billion ounces of silver in 2023. The mining sector is not producing any more silver. We're tapped out. Unless we see much higher silver prices for a long-term sustainable time frame, we can't produce more. So 800 million ounces, we could have a deficit of something like 600 million ounces of silver in 2023. If that doesn't move prices, then I don't know what will. And I'm not sure if we'll see new highs. I'm not quite that. That's a pretty bold statement, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see new highs in gold, as I'm expecting to see in 2023. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see north of $30 an ounce in this year for silver.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about First Majestic. You announced the company's 2022 total production, which reached a new record of 31.3 million silver equivalent ounces. Can you walk us through these results?
Yeah, sure. The Santa Elena operation, which is we brought a new mine called Ermitaño online, which is part of that Santa Elena complex. We estimated that we'd produce about 7.5 million silver equivalent ounces there in 2022. We ended up producing 9.1 million ounces, which was quite the nice event. Jerritt Canyon was a little bit behind schedule. That's our latest acquisition in the state of Nevada. We're working hard there to get that growing, and that's really where most of our growth in 2023 is coming from, is from Jerritt Canyon. San Dimas, our largest mine in our portfolio, is basically steady state, as well as Encantada. So most of the growth in 2022 is really Santa Elena.
So for 2023, what are the significant milestones investors should be watching out for from First Majestic?
We're turnaround artists. Every mine that we bought in the history of the company, we always add something to it. You don't buy a mine that's not got problems. Why would someone sell you a mine that was running perfectly, that's spinning off cash flow? You look at San Dimas, you should look at Santa Elena. They all had issues when we bought them, back in 2015 and 2018, and with Jerritt Canyon came on our portfolio about 18 months ago. And we've been turning it around, and it takes time. You're dealing with Mother Nature. You're dealing with an asset that has not had investment for 15 years, and it takes time to turn these big mines around. And we expect that over the next couple of quarters, Jerritt Canyon will get turned around, and that's the big growth story. So I think investors are really waiting to see that happen, and we're excited to keep working hard to achieve that.
Awesome. Okay, well, that's all we have for you today, Keith. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some of your expertise with us.
Oh, great. Well, thanks, Cassandra, and I look forward to the next time.
To our audience at home, thank you so much for tuning in today. We will be back again tomorrow with another great interview, so be sure to stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below so you don't miss out. Bye.